All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are in for another episode of Coffee, Tea, You and Me. For those of you who have been following me and learned about me, you know that I've been doing this program for 20 years. I've been helping entrepreneurs. First I was sitting at home in my local Panera Bread, kind of working things out with people. And then as COVID-19 hit, we decided to move our whole entire weekly program online. So at 3 o'clock every Friday, we are literally broadcasting live on both Facebook and YouTube to help entrepreneurs, business leaders, socialpreneurs, marketing professionals of all type learn how to execute everything to execute to increase the value of their performance, to increase their energy, and to increase their focus in how to do their business. It's a critical time for entrepreneurs and leaders to understand how to do all three of those things and how to do them exceptionally well. When you can do these things well, you can grow your business. You can create legacy. Now, why is that important to me? It's always important to me because as a citizen, I want to see small businesses grow. I want to see them thrive. I want to see them take their rightful place in this place called America, where we think about independence, where we think about freedom, where we think about access to opportunity and creating opportunities that grow our economy, grow our way of life, and grow our ability to express ourselves in the greatest form of human expression possible. And I think that's only possible through entrepreneurship. It's only possible through business leadership and people being willing to take up the reins and loosen the dependencies and the shackles of corporations or larger organizations and strike out on their own with their own ideas and their own values, their own principles, and the things that make them tick, I think are relevant and really, really important to try to encourage. So that's what I spend my life doing. Today's guest for the show is so exciting. Daren Shumate is actually the vice president of the Fairfax County Small Business Commission. Along with me, I am the president, or the chairman I guess a chairman is a better title, of the commission. And together we're working to help entrepreneurs in our area and business leaders in our area really do anything they can to be better at the procurement game, to understand a little bit more about how governments do business and how business can be done with what we call SWaM businesses, which are small, medium, women-owned and minority-owned companies. And so we're trying to do everything we can to support them from a public point of view, from a point of view of creating opportunities. We're not paid, so we're volunteers, and we actually give up our own time to do what we can to educate and to invite and inform entrepreneurs and small business leaders, anything they need to do business with the county, do business within the county, do business through the county, and anything we possibly can do to help businesses in our area do better. That's what we're all about. So we pay attention to the national news, we pay attention to the state news, we pay attention to the local news, and try to figure out what legislation might impact small businesses and what things might be important to them. And finally, what we're responsible for is to give our county board of directors some idea or some concepts that maybe they can do to change legislations or create procedures within the county that might help further the gap, or help reduce the gap between the disparity of small and minority-owned entrepreneurs and others. And so that's what we're all about. That's what we're trying to do. And Daren he just opened up an engineering firm company a couple of weeks ago. He's really, really great. He's backstage in the studio. He's waiting for us. And a little homework before we bring Daren into the studio. We're going to talk about two things today. One, we're going to do Inside the Business Mind with Daren Shumate. So we're going to have some questions for him to deal with. He's going to be participating in the True Voice process, which is a process I created not too long ago. We're going to do an abbreviated version with Daren because the whole version of True Voice is about trying to help uncover the unconscious qualities of a person's character. When you're working to build a relationship, when you're working to build a networking relationship with someone, or you're trying to invite somebody onto your advisory council, or you're trying to get people to be a mentor for you, or you're trying to somehow leverage or find the support mechanisms, it's very, very important that you hear the voice of the people that you want to do. So we're going to walk Daren through that process and record it. As a matter of fact, he's volunteered to be a guinea pig on this, and he's just a kind soul. He's backstage in the studio waiting, and we're also going to be talking about, after that interview, we're going to be talking about some aspects of a program that I created called Listen Up. And Listen Up is really the first step in 9 steps to improving and building upon your professional relationships. If you can learn to do this right up front, it's the first step. If you can learn to listen up really, really well, you're going to find that you enter the right relationships quickly, and you get to a level of trust and opportunities within those relationships fairly quickly. And so today's just like a great learning opportunity for those of you all who are out there following us. I hope you are participating in the chat. So here's some homework, right? If you are already in the studio somehow, some way, and you have something, actually, I want all of you all to share with us who you are, where you're from. Let's start with that. We're going to engage that way right off the bat. So if you got access to the chat, go ahead and put in the comment section, either on YouTube or on Facebook. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what business you're operating from, and maybe even how you know about the program. Did you find out about it on Meetup? Did you find out about it on LinkedIn? Were you invited by me or Daren in some kind of way? If so, put that information in the chat, and I'm going to make sure that throughout the day we give you a shout out. And if you're interested in, if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and throw that information in the chat, and I'll try to make sure. Yep, Daren, you're working. I'll try to make sure that we highlight you. We're not going to put you on screen or anything unless you want to come into the studio. I may give you the studio link if there's something exciting that's going on in the chat. But other than that, the chat is how you engage with us. The chat is how you involve yourself, and we really want as much engagement as possible on the interview with Daren, as well as on the topic of the day. And so we're going to get started right away after a brief commercial message. And here we go. I just love that little graphic. A good friend of mine created that for me, and that's like sort of opening to the next phase of our opportunity here of our episode. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm introducing to you Mr. Daren Shumate. Daren is a wonderful engineer, extremely talented, a bright person, and I got to tell you, he's one of the most exceptional people of character that I've had a chance to meet and work with, and I'm so pleased to be working with him. We are the 2 elected officials on the Fairfax County Small Business Commission, and he and I are both going to be working together to do great things for SWaM community in this next year. We're looking forward to talking to him and working with him and doing all kinds of good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Daren Shumate. Let's give a round of applause. See my studio applause. I have to work on my studio applause button.
That's great. That was such a nice intro. That's the nicest thing anybody said to me all day.
So Daren, tell us about yourself. What made you get started in the engineering business in the first place?
That's a great question. In fact, I used to do a lot of recruiting at my alma mater, Kansas State, and had an opportunity to speak to all the students. And that's kind of the big question I asked them. It's like, why do you want to be an engineer? Well, the answer is, when you're a kid, the toys that I liked more than anything else were the blocks, the Lincoln Logs, the Tinker Toys, and I loved building things. I loved designing things. I would draw houses. I'd draw buildings, and with a natural ability also in math and science, engineering was a perfect fit. And here I am, however many years later, still drawing buildings and drawing and building with blocks. So it's a super creative field. In fact, I think it's one of the most creative fields. I like to say at the beginning of the day, we start out with a blank sheet of paper. At the end of the day, we have a design that gets built, and then we get to see it built. It's very, very satisfying.
That is amazing. So I know we talked about this earlier. I'm going to take Daren through our True Voice process. And for those of you in the studio audience, if you would like to have me send you a copy of these 16 True Voice questions. This is very, very important stuff that will allow you to open up professional relationships and really, really get to know each other better. This is the secret sauce, by the way, behind what most great interviewers do. When they're interviewing people on television, when you see Oprah, when you see Barbara doing what they do, and really giving riveting great interviews, it's really they're using questions like you have in the True Voice process. The most important thing about that, though, is understanding that it's the voice of the person that you're talking to that matters most. Trying to understand who they are, what they're about, what they really mean to say when they say whatever they say. And in doing so, as the person who's listening, you get the opportunity now, instead of responding or reflecting right away, you get the opportunity now to sit back, think about it, do some strategies, which we're going to talk about a little later on, and really, really engage in a deeper, more meaningful way with the person, coming out of the end of that with a better relationship than you did moving in. And that's always these are always important skills to practice. And so if you want a copy of the True Voice, please do me a favor, as you posting your name and where you're coming from in the comment section, make sure you let me know, and I will either DM you with it, whether it's through LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that, or I'll get it to you somehow. But I need to know you want it. I'm not giving it to you just because if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. It's just one of those things. So let's start off from the bat. Daren, when you think about where your company is today versus where you want it to go in the future, I want you to imagine that everything is working just like you want it to work. You have amazing contracts, you have amazingly talented people, you have more money than you can shake a stick at, you have all the time in the world that you can imagine. I mean, there's no pressure, there's no anything that you have to do at this point. You've built a machine that just does what it does, and it does it exceptionally well. What is it at that point in time that you hope to be able to be, do, and have that you can't right now?
Well, that's a great question, and you had shared some of the ideas of some of the questions, and I didn't really dive deep into it because I wanted to be able to be extemporaneous, but that's a big question that I was asking myself, as I was just making the decision to start Shumate Engineering last summer. Is like, where do I want to be? And what I just talked earlier about how I love designing, I love building things. I'm at a point in my career where a lot of what I do is manage the process and win work. And if I have a machine that's working beautifully, where I see myself and being very, very satisfied and fulfilled is remaining that ambassador of Shumate Engineering. That I'm the one who's out there, and as ambassador, it's both an external ambassador and an internal ambassador. I like to think that I get as much fulfillment out of mentoring and guiding and teaching as I do about running the business and winning new work. And I'm pretty proud of that in my career that I've had a chance to mentor some engineers, a handful of engineers, or many engineers that have gone on to do very, very, very good things and continue to do good things. So I guess it would be like that inward, outward ambassador, role. I like that a lot.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, actually, and that kind of plays into our role together on the small business commission. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity also to give back to the community in many ways. Because in addition to the Small Business Commission, I'm on the Fairfax County Board of Code Appeals. We meet once a week to review cases that have gotten people that have built something that's out of code or whatever, and it gets appealed, and that's been highly rewarding. And I also participated in a neighborhood led a neighborhood group that was looking at the rezoning language of the Lincolnia Planning District in my neighborhood. So that was a 2-year gig. Again, that was a completely volunteer gig, and those are, I find, highly rewarding.
That is amazing. I think that a lot of times, I know I find myself when I grow in wisdom and I love to share it with other people. I want to make sure that the community that I participate in, and any community that I participate in, I try to find those that are acceptable and amenable to that information so that it works well. And as I reach for mentors and ambassadors, I also reach back for proteges and people that I can bring along in any role that I play. So if I'm doing, my role as a dad, so to speak, I'm looking for people who have done this role exceptionally well, right? That I can ask questions of and begin to engage with and take some instruction from. But I'm also looking for others who may be new at this role and having to figure out, how do I do this successfully? Because, there are many books that have been written on, say, fatherhood. Let's just use that example, right? There's many books that have been written on it, but there's nothing in the human experience that we find that is better than the practical application of what's going on right now. What are you explaining? What are you doing right now in that role, whatever role you play? And so I find that we all play very, very different roles in life. And it all makes up who we are and how we exist. So you think about yourself as an ambassador, right? You want to be the great ambassador for engineering and engineering quality, right? And I totally understand that. I see you, on the stage right now, just doing your thing in front of, those listening audience and just sharing and answering questions, which is literally the best way to engage with people. It's really to ask questions. So when you think about that opportunity, when you think about what it's going to take to get you there, to, creating that great brand, creating that great company, creating that great image, and becoming that kind of ambassador that you imagine, what do you think are the biggest obstacles that are in your way that you can see readily? That these are things that you have to be able to get past, hurdles you have to be able to get over in order to achieve that dream.
Also a very, very good question, because at a certain level, a lot of the obstacles are ones that anybody could throw out, and they're pretty normal. I mean, you got to be able to win work, you got to be able to execute the work, you got to be able to collect money, you got to run the business, and all those kind of headaches. And at a certain point, those begin to take care of themselves. But the real obstacles, come, internally. And believe it or not, people don't know that about me, but at one point in my life, I was very, very shy. And with that shyness is kind of a lack of self-confidence. And even now, from time to time, I get this for whatever reason, lack of self-confidence. And at a certain level, at which it almost seems ridiculous, but it's not.
Right.
It's like, can I do it? Well, maybe I can. And what I found in particular the last year, as I was going through the decision process to open up my own shop, I had several individuals for whom I have very, very high regard that says, Daren, you've been very successful. You're successful at winning work. You're a good engineer. People that have worked for you speak highly of you. You can do it. And then I guess I think I shared the story with you when I was going through that debate last summer. I opened up the shop officially on June 1st, and I just hit something. I lost your picture, but when I was looking at doing it, my wife said, "Well, Daren, aren't you still looking for work?" I said, "No, I'm going to open up the shop." She goes, "Well, I know you. You're so disorganized. You're so scattered." And maybe that's part of another obstacle, as well as finding a way to get a little bit better organized.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I took myself out of the studio so that other people can see you. So one of the greatest.
I thought I did that. I thought I hit something. I'm always hitting something on my computer here.
So what I hear you saying is one of the greatest challenges is making sure that you are always on top of your organizational strategy, your organizational discipline. And that's really going to be something that's going to be tremendously helpful to you.
Well, and for example, I'm probably at a point now in my growth to actually have some sort of an office manager, or even if it's not full-time, somebody who can come in and just help me keep organized and disciplined. Again, people that know me know that I have many hobbies and interests, and maybe I am a little bit distractible, but ultimately, I'm able to get stuff done. It's amazing.
I'm exactly the same way. I'm all over the place. If you guys could see my office right now, it'd be a mess. But it's a part of my genius at the same time, because I'm able to put my hands on literally everything that I'm working on. And when I get bored with one thing, I just jump to the other thing. Or I get bored with something else, I just jump to the other thing. And so that's kind of how I keep myself and all of my interests like right in front of me, just in case. I stay turned on all day. But that's the part of my process. It's not like it looks like chaos, but it's organized chaos, in that way for me. I don't know how that works for you, but I think that everyone needs great systems to manage, themselves, their attitude, the projects that they have in front of them. And there are several systems that some of them are like in a box online, so you can just download some of the programs and some of the strategies that you can use. And sometimes you have to do a little deeper. Have you found anything that really, really works for you? Any kind of systems? Okay.
In fact, the best I've got is, I keep a running notebook with notes, but the challenge there is to go back and read your notes, which maybe I do once a month. And it's like, oh, I talked to that guy. Oh, I was supposed to call him back.
So you're like me and my Franklin planner. I don't go anywhere without this thing. It's always within arm's length for me because I'm engaged with it all day, every day.
Yeah, I've tried to find certain kinds of programs and OneNote, and there's several, but the software stuff, if it takes me 30 seconds to do it, it's just not going to happen. So I'm really better with keeping I keep a running to-do list in a Word document that now is probably 100 pages old, because I just redo it like every day or once a week or whatever. And knock things off. My dad always carried around a stenographer's notebook with the things that he had to get done. And at a certain point, I think I should revert back to that, because it was very effective for my father, who was very successful. And I used to do it, and maybe I should go back to that. So, you're right. You need some sort of structure and system.
I remember when I was getting certified for all of the Stephen Covey courses and things like that, the train the trainer kind of stuff. One of the things that was very, very important was to help leaders understand the various types and various strategies, organizational disciplines that they could use. But I found that even in all of those things, it was like with 4 things you got to keep control of, right? You got to keep control of your to-do list, right? Your daily, weekly, monthly to-do list. You got to keep control of your calendar. Then you got to keep control of your contacts, and you got to keep control of your notes. And so and it doesn't matter whether you have some partial electronic, partial online, partial, physical and paper and pen and paper and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes, sketching stuff out and drawing stuff out kind of helps you, engage with it more and put it in your brain, whatever it takes. But I think the various types of systems are very, very important, and coming up with different strategies that work for the individuals is even more important. And I found that as I grow in leadership and as I grow in people that I work with, I'm having to, revisit and revitalize and retrain and re-understand different systems to stay organized all the time. And it's a never-ending pursuit. Since I was 20 years old, I've been trying to get more and more and more and more and more organized, because I recognize the value of it. I recognize the value in learning it for myself. I also recognize the value in sharing it with other people, because that's kind of how we all learn. We all learn the best by sharing with others. So I'm interested in learning about your father's, system, because I hadn't heard of that before.
Another thing I did, well, at one point I would use my normal email address and give it out, and I'd have it on my phone with my work email address. And all of a sudden, if I'm using the Gmail address for everything else, all of a sudden I've got like 10,000 unread emails. So I now totally divorced my Gmail account from my cell phone, and I only check those when I get home. and think of checking them. So that was one big thing that I did, and I try to be judicious about heading out my. Well, I'm not judicious because I would like as many people to have Daren at ShumateEngineering.com as possible, but I don't use that when I'm ordering something on Amazon or whatever. So that helped, because how often do you get an email and it only lasts on your screen for a few minutes and it goes off the bottom, and then someone said, "Didn't you get my email?" I said, "No, I never got your email." And you go back and look and say, "Oh yeah, I got that like 2 days ago." And it's a discipline, it's and you've got to be disciplined, and that's I would say that goes without saying, so I shouldn't have said it.
So I find that the more new systems and new ways to communicate and contact each other we create, the more I have to pay attention to more.
So my observation is, and this goes, we've had several conversations about communication. I said we have never. It's 2021. We have never been more connected, and it's email, it's voicemail, it's Facebook IM, it's WhatsApp, it's TikTok, it's Instagram. Keep going. We've never been more connected, and at the same time, never communicated more poorly. So
yes,
being connected does not mean being effective in communication. So it's a paradox. It's a paradox.
It is so true. And so, I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of how you want to be perceived and how you want to interact. I always love people who have like 300 contacts in their LinkedIn community versus the 25,000 I have. Because I know that the chances are they have deeper relationships and deeper connections with those 300 than I do at 2,500 and growing, right? So people will look at me and go, "Oh, well, you must know all these people." Well, no, I don't know all these people. I can maybe facilitate some contact with a lot of these people, but those that I really know.
Do you have 25,000 or 2,500?
Oh, 25,000.
Yeah. So even for this little gig here this afternoon, right. I went through the process of inviting people on Wednesday, and this is again my technological savvy or lack thereof. I was doing it one by one, and it was taking a long time. I said, I know I've got like 4,000, and I basically just stopped at 400 because I was getting tired and it was late.
Right.
So, and then of course the ones I invited are people that I know and have regard for, and I see them at conferences and see them out and about. So you're right. It's like having that communication and be able to be effective.
And that's the key. It's effectiveness, and what you consider effective can be different depending on what you need. A mass communication effort where you really don't care if somebody gives you any feedback or any engagement on it, because you already know it's such a high quality communication, can be good for 25,000 people. But if you want to have an interpersonal communication or a dialogue that's back and forth, you're going to have to be a lot more warm and friendly. You're going to have to be a lot more invitational. You're going to have to just bring them into a little bit more of a deeper understanding and engagement of who you are. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. The next question I want to ask you is, we already know that, yes, if you were to just max out the organizational discipline, just become amazing like that, that would be great for you. But what instinctively could you do to move the needle forward? In your gut, what do you know that you can do differently right now to move that forward?
Oh, right now, I think instinctively to make real progress moving it forward is a strategic hire or two. Right now, as the main guy at Shumate Engineering, I'm wearing all the hats. So to find the key individuals that can be the operations director. At this point, I need somebody who can run the engineering group I can set it up and set expectations. This is how I want to engage. This is how I want drawings to look. This is how I want it to go. Then have somebody who loves drawing and putting drawings together in engineering and working with architects and owners to run the shop. So that's one key one. And in fact, I've had a watershed 4 weeks. I'm in the process of closing some significant deals, and it's astounding. So all of a sudden, it's like that one TV commercial when the guy's on the phone saying, "Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that." Because so far, that's what I've been saying. And of course, all my friends are listening now, and it's like, okay, now how am I going to get it done? Good news is I've got a system in place, and I've got key individuals, on the hook, and we'll get it done. But a key individual for me to hire is an operations director, and then, making the move and with a senior, a senior mechanical as part of my team is to make him permanent, and the same with an electrical engineer, and like I said, an office, somebody to help me manage the office. So like key hires. So
you need some people who have excellent engineering skills, but also have excellent organizational discipline and management skills.
Right, to keep me honest. And the good news is you're recording this, and I'm going to get the recording because I'm going to forget that I've said this, and then I forget that I need to get this done.
I'm not going to let you. We have an every Thursday morning conversation, and there's no way I'm going to let you off the hook.
No,
So,
great.
that's my job as a coach. I just do that. I make sure I remember, and I inspire, I motivate people to move themselves forward. So we're going to be talking about, what's the smartest way to recruit, what's the smartest way to bring the new people on, whether it's going to be, strategies and partnerships and there's a lot of 1,000 different ways to do it. So we'll definitely be talking about that. And obviously my next question, I don't even have to ask you my next question because I already know what it is in the question though, but just for the audience so they know, the next part of the True Voice process is really talking about commitment. Like, what commitments do you know that you need to make right now to yourself and to others in order for you to move the needle forward, in order for you to keep the party going, in order for you to make sure that you stay on track? What commitments, maybe if there's any that you haven't already said, or maybe even a refinement of what you've already said that you have to make? So
that's a great question. And it's a great question because I really haven't thought about it, and I think the answer, I know what the answer is. It's the commitment I've got to make is that this is my gig to retirement, whenever that is. So the commitment is, I'm in this for the long haul.
All in.
It's not a 2-year gig or a 3-year gig or a 5-year gig. And
Right.
If anybody goes to my LinkedIn, you will see that I've never been at a place longer than 6 years. That just the way it's worked for me, and it's worked well for me. And I've made tons of great friends and learned a lot of things and done a lot of great projects through that diversity of experience. But, and here I am at my age, starting a firm in the middle of quarantine. Like, what the heck am I thinking? But, it was a great decision. It's going well, and the good news is I've never been more fulfilled, and at the same time frightened, in my career. But the upside is there is no upside. I mean, it's it. So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it because it helps me focus. That's very, very insightful.
It's critically important because I think that the more you can articulate some of these things and some of these questions I'm asking you, and the more you put them in writing, and the more you commit them to your process and your brain and your strategy, and you share it. That's the most important thing. When you start to share it with other people begin to come forward with their talents and their abilities and their strengths because they feel almost a pull or a calling to do so. So if anybody's on right now who think they can help Daren in the regards to some of the things that he's talked about and so on and so forth, go ahead and fess up, put it in the chat, let us know. And maybe we'll create an opportunity for you to begin to get involved and to dialogue with him. I know also, in every iteration of everything we're trying to do, there's always going to be environmental concerns, some that are more relevant than others, and some that, don't matter at all. Like for right now, as a coach, an environmental concern for me might be the lack of ability to use technology well because of the changes in how people now communicate. And that might affect, it actually hasn't affected because I stayed on top of it, but previous to COVID-19, that might have been a serious environmental concern that I had to think about or come up with ways to address. But now that's on the backside. The next environmental thing that I think I have to worry about is probably going to be the overall competitive nature of the market of coaching in the business community. Just understanding what that really is and understanding how to continually differentiate myself and target market and focus on the people and the strategies that work best for me. I think that's always going to be a concern for me environmentally. It's like, okay, because as people start, because everybody and their mother's a coach, right? You don't need a certification for it. You don't need anything for it. You can just give yourself a title, a name, and boom, you're a coach. You don't really have to have any experience, and a lot of people say that. Unlike yourself, you have to be certified to be a professional engineer, an architect. But what would you think are environmental concerns that you got to keep in front of you and keep a watch on to make sure they don't take you out of the game?
Okay. Paraphrase that.
What things outside of you right now that you have absolutely no control over, but you have to keep a watch on it? What do you have to watch out for that might affect you negatively and affect your progress in your business negatively?
Outside of really the best thing you can do, like you said, you can't control what you can't control, outside of my control. The best thing I can do is develop a robust plan. A robust business plan, a robust marketing plan, a robust recruiting plan, with rigorous attainable goals and pathways to get to those goals. It's one of these spreadsheets that I keep on my desktop that I haven't finished yet. And like I said, I'm in the middle of now closing a few big deals. So that planning, that organization has elevated up. And at the end of the day, I'm only as good as the plan and how I execute the plan. So I think the answer really is to have a plan. And the reality is you'll never really be finished with it. It's going to be evolving, but I think it's to have that focus. And like I said, all of a sudden, I've got a ton of stuff going on. You had mentioned bringing in key individuals. If you've gone to my website and know what I'm doing, I brought Steve Spinazzola on board. Steve actually was my boss at RTKL years ago. Then we became partners when I was promoted to VP. And since I left RTKL and since he's left RTKL, we've been talking for, we probably would touch base once every 6 weeks or so. Brief conversation, always kind of seeing what we're each other doing. And we'd always say, we got to get together. We should collaborate or whatever. And all of a sudden we're collaborating and the phones are ringing. It's happening. It's amazing. So that was really, to be honest, that was kind of a backdoor plan because, I knew I was going to need a mechanical partner, and Steve called me. It's like, damn. Sometimes you just get lucky. Steve would often my mechanical engineer partner Steve often would say, "I'd rather be lucky than good." So
that is
I'll take luck.
Super awesome. So I don't have any other questions for you, but what I want to do now is we're going to flip to the second side of our topic, which is really creating engaging conversation. How do you do it? What are the things you need to do to make sure that you're good at it? What are the skills and core talents that you should exercise? And while we're kind of loading that up and that thought process up, I want to introduce some of the people who have already signed on. If you haven't already signed on, and let us know who you are, where you're from, and how you found out about the program, please do so. And I'm going to introduce a couple people right now. First person I'm going to introduce is somebody I think we were talking about, Mr. Steven Spinazzola. Is that correct? Did I get that right, Stephen? He gives you a shout out. Hello, boss. I don't know where you're coming from, Stephen, or anything like that. So if you could put your information, or if you want to even put your business information on how we get in contact, don't put a whole elevator speech in the chat, but some quick little idea. I call them a 7-second marketing line. Like, okay, who do you serve, and how do you benefit them? How do they benefit from being a part of your service mentality? For me, I say I serve small businesses. I help them introduce and create more production, creativity, and energy in their business. Boom. That's it. That's what I do. That's who I am. That's what I'm all about. So if you guys can do something like that, that'd be great. Stephen, welcome to the show. I'm also going to introduce to the show Mr. Eric Kleiner. Eric comes to us from Bretco Inc. I'd love to know where Bretco Inc. is, and if you know either myself or Daren, that'd be great to know. So go ahead and throw that information in the chat. I'm also going to introduce to the show Russ Bailey from Sage Engineering. I see Daren smiling over there, so I know that you guys must know each other already, which is great. Tell us again, where's Sage Engineering from? Where you're located? What do you focus on? If there's any contact information or anything you want, even a link to the website, whatever you want to share with us, please do so. We're an entrepreneur-friendly show. Don't think that you're showing off or doing too much by sharing who you are and what you're all about. We want to see that. That's going to be great for us. And
so Russ and I used to have debates, and we were both right, and we hated to be wrong. Fellow K-State architectural engineer, and we would have great debates. There was just fun. We maintained a great relationship.
Awesome. There's another person from Tetra Tech, Mr. John Brummer, and he has a question for us. Are you ready for the question? John asks us, is Shumate Engineering designated a small business enterprise, and does that open some doors?
So that's a great question, and we're considered SWaM in Virginia, which is small women-owned and minority. And if you want to know what the minority is, that is a Kansas Swede. I'm a Kansas Swede. That's just a joke. And we are self-certified as a small business enterprise, or for federal work. And believe it or not, I have not taken advantage of either of those. The SWaM should be able to open up doors in Virginia, because Virginia, for example, has a requirement for 50% of design projects to be issued to SWaM firms. But ironically, sometimes these SWaM firms are actually pretty big firms, and a lot of the stuff's locked up. And a lot of, for example, all the university work in Virginia has that requirement, and they're not doing a lot of, with the COVID, the university, the higher education stuff has been pretty much put on hold. So that would be another key hire, or a key person would be to find somebody who is good at marketing to the government agencies, because I haven't done it for years. But that's a great question, John. And John and I were high school classmates in Beloit, Kansas, and he went on to get a civil engineering degree at Kansas State where I went as well.
I'd also like to introduce my good friend Suresh Kimlani. Suresh is an amazing tailor, a great person to know. In fact, Suresh, yes, I need you to deliver. She just did a Swede jacket for me. I had to have it sort of reconstructed, because I've lost some weight since I got that jacket, and I want to wear that jacket, but the weather's starting to turn already. Anyway, but Suresh has got my jacket. He's ready for delivery. The only thing that's been holding up is me. And so, yes, Suresh, bring it as soon as possible. But anyway, this is CEO Outfitters, which is his organization. There's their website, there's their phone number, and their email address. So feel free to reach out, Suresh, if you have any needs for tailoring, or any needs for, you want some nice suits, man. The best suit in the world I've ever had in my life, Suresh gave to me. And I'm just trying to lose some weight so I can get back in it, because it's a great suit. I look forward to working with him. And let me see who else do I need to introduce. Craig, there's Craig Peterson from Page. Did we do Craig already? I'm not sure. Oh, Craig is in Dallas, Texas. That's great to know, Craig. And we got Mark Rango from the Menkitty Group in Washington, D.C. Thank you for coming on the show. Good to see you. For those of you all who you like the show and you want to participate, Feel free to share the show. Feel free to, subscribe in either in LinkedIn or Facebook, or not LinkedIn, but YouTube or Facebook. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. And I do lots of special stuff for people who subscribe. And so if you're watching the show and you want to subscribe, I really appreciate that. Also, my good friend, Mr. Benjamin Adler, is here with us today. Ben is just an amazing young marketing professional. He's talented and super gifted in literally all things when it comes to communicating and developing business development opportunities for people. So if you want to reach out, you need some more business development stuff, you definitely want to reach out to Benjamin, and that's his contact information right there. Okay, so let's get into the second half of today's program. Second half of today's program, and I'm going to keep Daren here in the studio with me. We're talking about literally, how do you listen? And this comes from a program that I created called Listen Up. And Listen Up was really all about helping people understand how to listen to the right people. Not listen to everybody, but listen strategically to the right people. Now, here's what we understand about listening in its broadest sense. When you listen to someone else, you are literally paying attention. Those are two separate words. You're paying attention, meaning you're making an investment in someone else. You're engaging the greatest parts of your humanity and helping to engage the greatest parts of their humanity in a communication effort. That word communication, really the stem of those words is commune. It's to be with someone. So if you find yourself talking to people and you're not asking engaging questions and you're not getting feedback from them, then the communication is very, very one-sided. But if you find yourself talking to someone and they're offering feedback from you that you're accepting and understanding and feeling and adjusting in a way where they know that you're understanding and you're hearing, and then it's a back and forth going on, that's what we call communication. And that communication works exceptionally well and benefits people greatly because it establishes and maintains trust. When you cannot communicate effectively, it's very difficult to manage and maintain trust. Now, if you can't create and maintain trust, you have nothing to leverage in that relationship. You won't find a way to support one another. You won't find a way to create what we call win-win opportunities. Now, that's the basic. Those are the basic. That's the basic overall thing. But here are the facts. I just read this in Harvard Business Review 2 days ago. 90% of all deals, all venture capital deals, all angel investment deals, 90% happen because of relationships. They do not happen because of skill or talent. They happen because of relationships. And so if you know you're going to need the support of others in any way, the first and most important skill you can have is the skill of building relationships. And this is something that you never, ever stop improving on. You have to get better at it and better at it and better at it. Now, I've written extensively about this in several different places, which I'll be more than happy to share with anybody who's interested. But today's topic is all about how you begin those relationships. And you begin those relationships by creating the environment where you listen incredibly, with more intent and more focus than at any other time ever in your life. So I just took Daren through sort of an abbreviated version of what I call my true voice system. I created the true voice system because as an introvert, I love to listen, but I'm not good necessarily at engaging and really, really getting in there with people. And so I had to create a strategy, a system for myself, a tool for myself in order to do that, so that I could know that I'm talking to people about things that matter, things that build trust, things that create relationships, versus necessarily what they want to say. Because if I'm just sitting back and listening, people just say what they want to say. And I can listen. That's great. There's great opportunities there. But if I don't somehow engage in a meaningful way, then I won't be sure then how to embrace whatever opportunities that are created from that communication. So there's two techniques that I'm going to teach you, two key ideas that I want to teach you when it comes to listening. And I want your feedback on these things. The two core skills that anybody needs to have when it comes to maximizing focus on any communicating that you could possibly do are two. One, you've got to learn how to let yourself go. And two, you got to learn how to embrace who's ever speaking. So you have to let yourself go and then embrace whoever's speaking. Now, let's get into a little bit of that. And there's some key words that I want to see you use. When you let yourself go, all right, what are some of the things you have to do? Some of the things you have to remember to do emotionally or technically in order to be successful at that. What I mean by that is, you know how sometimes when you're speaking, you're looking for opportunities, or when you're listening to somebody, you're looking for some opportunity to speak and put your idea in there, but you're not really paying attention completely to what they're saying because something happened in your brain and you got caught, or there's something that as a message that you want to deliver that's more important to you than what they're saying. What do you do to circumvent that? What do you do to get yourself to suspend your ideas, your emotional context, and so on and so forth, and actually be able to then give all of your attention to the person that you're listening to? How do you let go of you? Does anybody have any ideas about what they do? Put that stuff in the chat. I want to hear what you have to say. How do you come outside of your own box? And I'm going to see if anybody can guess what I'm going to suggest that you do. And while everybody else is putting stuff in the chat, I'm going to ask Daren. I'm going to put Daren on the hot seat. What do you do, Daren? What do you do to get rid of your own internal thoughts, your own biases, everything, in order to be open to listening to people that you want to listen to?
You keep asking me good. It does require focus and I guess self-discipline, because a lot of times, people begin talking and you get a little distracted. I'm not sure if that's what you were going for or not.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right along the lines of what I'm going for. Self-discipline is great. Here's what Benjamin has to say. Benjamin says for him, it's about removing any obstructive feelings that stop him from communicating effectively or inhibit relatedness. And, I know Ben is great at this. You really do have to, like you said, put yourself aside, put your own feelings and thoughts aside, and totally be open to what this person that you're talking to has to say. And I find that to be completely difficult because for me, I've got 1,000 ideas. I got 1,000 things that I've stored up in my life and my years that I definitely want to share. But when you're trying to win people's trust, when you're trying to listen to people, that's probably not the time for you to take the walking stick or the talking stick, so to speak, and run to Boston with it. You really have to suspend yourself in order to truly engage with someone else.
Well, so, on that same thought is maybe I just did it. I have the tendency to interrupt people and not necessarily finish their sentences, but I want to get my thought across. And, my Mrs. Shumate beats on me all the time about that. But, it's like you've got to bite your tongue and listen, make eye contact and listen and just and hold your thought. Sometimes if it's in a meeting, write down the note, because if I don't write it down, I'll forget it. So yeah,
I think it's very, very important because, making eye contact and using a few phrases that I'm gonna teach you right now. One of those phrases is, go on. Well, that sounds right. Attaboy. I get where you're coming from. Tell me more. If you remember those kinds of phrases, you can keep the conversation going without interrupting, but allow the person the benefit of feeling and accepting that you are in this. You're engaged with them. You are totally. You're not. And you can't fake this. You truly have to be engaged and truly have to be involved. If you find it difficult to hang on, there's a process that I want to teach you, and this is all sort of deep-seated neuropsychological babble for some of you all, but for others, you're going to probably nerd out and go along with me in this. This is a process called instinctive elaboration. Instinctive elaboration is a process. It's the process our brain uses to bring things into focus when a question is being asked. And so how you can do it for yourself is when people are talking to you, you can begin to ask yourself the question, what is it that they're really trying to say? What is it that they seem to be conveying to me in terms of feeling and emotional response? What is it that they're trying to, that they're really trying to have me understand? Ask yourself that question internally in your own mind without speaking, and you'll find that you can refocus, you can keep your focus where it needs to be. And as they're speaking, begin to ask questions about the context, the feelings, the relationships that you might be making, linking emotionally, mentally, and then you're going to find yourself staying engaged with the dialogue that person is hanging into. And you'll be able to, say, yeah, I get that. I totally understand. Okay, that makes perfect sense. And what else? And then you can continue the conversation without being disruptive, but totally engaged at the same time, which is critically important because all of us want to feel understood. There's nobody who wants to be misunderstood. I could be wrong. Let's take a poll. Is there anybody here that wants to be misunderstood? I think all of us want to be understood. And I think that what's key to being understood is knowing that the person who we're speaking to actually hears us, doesn't just listen to us passively, but actively listens to us, meaning they're letting us know that they're with us. They're on this journey with us. They're communicating with us. And, it's funny when I was taking communication classes way back in college, they mentioned this stuff and I thought, this is a bunch of hooey. This is not important. And this is easy stuff. So what? Everybody knows how to listen, right? No. I find that it's a very, very difficult thing. And even in my adulthood, I have the same situations with my children and daughters and wives and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, only got one wife and one daughter. I have a problem with, making sure I suspend belief and making sure I'm absolutely in with what they're saying to me and out of my own brain about where I want to manipulate and move the conversation. That matters a lot when you're trying to get people to trust you. When you want people to trust you, you don't want them to trust you just based on your competency or your character. You want them to trust you based on the fact that you make them feel understood. And if that's the case, I love that, John. John said, this is what John says. John goes, I want to be understood first! ! I love that thought process. Dr. Covey taught me a long time ago this phrase, and some of you who might know it, some of you might have heard it. It's very, very important. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And therein is the law of reciprocity. If you are in a conversation with someone and you look and you're trying, with everything you got to understand who they are, what they're really trying to communicate, what they're really trying to say, what they really mean, then you're doing a great job of being understood. You're of understanding them, but then you're offering them the opportunity similarly to turn that back around and understand you, which brings me to the second thing that I want to teach you. We already talked to you about, different ways to ask questions inside your own mind, because that creates focus for you. But the other thing to do is to ask questions of the person who's speaking. And in doing so, it's a magic thing that happens. If I do this, I can practice it on you guys right now. How many of you all are over 6 feet tall? Go ahead and write me in the chat if you're over 6 feet tall. Now, what I just did is I asked you guys a question and I hijacked your brain because you had no choice once you heard that question than to begin to focus and seek the answer to that question. And for those of you who really play with me, you engage and you put that information in the chat, you now let me know how tall you are. Or if you're thinking about how tall you are. Questions help drive focus. Now, I want you to use this power for good and not for bad, meaning I don't want you to use this as an interrogation, but I want you to use it as an opportunity to show interest in other people that you're engaging with. This is very, very important because if you're seeking someone to be on your advisory council, you're seeking someone to give you some mentorship, or you're seeking someone that might support your next thing, whatever you're doing, then you're going to have to learn how to engage with them in a meaningful, powerful way that helps them focus on what you're bringing to the table. But you're going to want them to enjoy focusing on that. And so the best way to do that is to ask questions. And when you think about, what I shared with you earlier, again, that's establishing that instinctive elaboration. Is people instinctively elaborate when they hear questions. They trains their focus to move in the right direction. The second thing you want to do, or the next thing you want to do, obviously, is reflective listening. Reflective listening is not a passive thing. When you're listening to someone, you want them to know that you get them, that you understand them. You're going to want to paraphrase the major thoughts and the major ideas to make sure, it's sort of a check-in, to make sure that you're with them and they're with you. If you don't do that, then what tends to happen is people keep making the point over and over and over and over again in a different way. And because they want desperately to be understood. And you're not giving them any indication. So a lot of people, when they're communicating, they have poker face. Has any of you ever dealt with somebody who had poker face when you're talking to them and you're not sure whether or not they understand what you're saying? Or they're with you, and they don't give you any body gestures. They don't give you a nod of the head. They don't give you anything that lets you know that they're actually with you. They could be looking right at you, right? But give you no indication that they understand where you're coming from, that you make sense, that anything connects. There's no connection going on. So that means, kind of, and maybe start looking off to the left, now they're really thinking about something else, right? And so I want you all to understand that it's important to practice reflective listening, not just verbally, but non-verbally. Because when you do that, people feel understood. When people feel understood, they fall in love with the people that understand them. Let me repeat that. When people feel understood, they fall in love with the person that seems to understand them. They can't help it. So again, I told you guys, use this stuff for good and not for negative, right? So I don't want you going out there getting the wrong people to fall in love with you for the wrong reasons. I want you to stay good, stay moral in this whole situation. But this is important because people are susceptible to anyone who listens to them. Anybody ever had a going on a long meeting or long trip, maybe a train trip or a plane trip, and you sat next to somebody and you had just the best conversation? Has that ever happened to any of you guys? I promise you, you didn't need to know their name or what they did or anything like that. It was the conversation that was magical. You might have gotten off that trip. I have done it. Gotten off the trip had whoever was picking me up, and like I had the best conversation with the best lady or the best gentleman. It's like, this was incredible. And my wife will ask me, or whoever will ask me, well, who were they? I don't know. I don't remember the name. And there's no other follow-up information. There's no way to engage and continue that. But we had a magical conversation with a stranger, right? That often happens because somehow they'll say something to engage my interest, and then I'll immediately go into reflective listening, or I'll immediately go into, some of the strategies, because I'm always practicing these strategies. And invariably what will happen is I will create the potential for another relationship through just paying attention. Okay, so we're going to open this up for questions, guys. If you guys have any questions or any thoughts you want to share, I'll put information in the chat. I'm going to go through and see. Mark asked the question. Let me see if Mark's got a question here. Let me see what it is. Mark says, what qualities do you find are most critical in a good business partner, either a client or a colleague? Okay, so for me, and I'm going to let Daren answer this question as well. For me, I'm looking for people that are trustworthy. Now, that's easy to say, right? Looking for people who are trustworthy. But I'm looking for people to prove they're trustworthy by having and showing and sharing their integrity. Now, what do I mean by that? I only work with entrepreneurs and business leaders who've been in business for 5 years or more as a client. You're not going to be my client. You're not even going to get on my radar if you haven't been in business for more than 5 years. Because at that point, you got problems that my solutions are perfect for. A startup has so many issues that are outside of my wheelhouse and require so much hand-holding, which I'm never going to do, that it's not going to work well. But a person who's been around for a while in the game, whatever game they're playing, then I'm going to be able to, my products and services are going to be specific and tailored just for them. And so knowing that, that's what I'm listening for. From a client perspective, I'm listening for qualifications, right? Do you qualify? One, have you been in business for 5 years or more? 2, are you in a service business? Meaning, do you need a license to do what you do? All right. Are you more dependent on brick and mortar? Because the brick and mortar people, I don't play with. I don't play with people who have to worry about location as a part of their business strategy. Those aren't people that I play with. That means restaurants are out and retail establishments are out, right? But people who are service model, service business, so who's in? That means architects, engineers, doctors, lawyers, CPAs, professional services. I'm all about that. So I have my list of qualifications to become a client. I also have my list of qualifications to become a partner, right? You can be a partner of mine if you have something that I need. And I know what my needs are. And so if it's a financial need, then it's the amount of money that's going to help me do whatever next thing I want to do. If it's a business support need, maybe it's some advice, or maybe it's maybe I need somebody to roll up their sleeves and go to work and do some things that really make something happen. If they have that ability, that skill, the capability, and availability, which are all a part of the qualified criteria, then that's what I'm going to use to make a decision. Because people can have the talent, but not the ability to, because they're not capable now, because their hands are so tied in another project or something else they're working on, they can't even spend a little bit of time with me. So I know it's like, if you can't give me 5 to 10 hours or whatever it is I'm looking for a week, nothing else matters. We're not going to be able to work because I need some focus time. I need some energy and some effort. If you don't have access to resources, we can't play. Because you can't be a partner if you don't bring anything to the table that I need, right? But you have to. I always tell people you have to have a good assessment of what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, And for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, I just described a SWOT analysis, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You must be in constant measure of these things, because when you are, then you know what you need. You know what the next hill is that you have to get over and around, and you know what you need to do it. And so you know who to ask, or there's people who are actually know how to conquer that hill. You already know how to do it. So having a SWOT analysis detailed out, you can look it up, Google it. There's plenty of information and training on it out there. Doing that SWOT assessment for yourself and your business is a smart thing, because it'll help you answer this question. That's a great question, Mark.
So
go ahead, Daren.
So my thoughts are very similar to in what I strive for is to be, the engineer that they can count on. Mm-hmm. And that needs to be reciprocated, that I can count on the client as well. It's definitely a reciprocal relationship. And where that goes is Mark and I trade bread recipes. Mark is into making sourdough bread, and he needed a starter, so I shared my starter with Mark. So he's a good client, good friend, and we share baking recipes.
That's great. That's really great. So Suresh says that he asks his customers and friends, what their likes are first, and then he also asks what they don't like. I find that critically important when it comes to being able to open up dialogue, meaningful conversation with people. Finding out what doesn't work is almost as important as finding out. It probably could be more important than finding out what does work, because in what doesn't work is an opportunity for you maybe to solve a problem, or pull upon a resource that you know of that can solve a problem, that can help them really figure out how to get organized and structured, or how to do whatever they need to do. And so it's digging out those questions that and help people come to the table with the real them that will create better relationships. And Suresh wants to give us some more facts about how people's clothes don't fit. And he's right. He's right. he's absolutely right about that. Most people don't, really think about their image in that way. How good do my clothes fit? And it matters. It matters quite a bit to when people make that first impression of you. What are they making? What are they making it based on? And if it's only based on how you look, sometimes you don't get a chance to speak for it. You can throw them off really quickly. Do we have any more questions? I don't think we have any more questions that we can respond to. If you guys have any questions about creating or leveraging relationships, or leveraging up using communication strategies, go ahead, feel free to open up, ask any question you want, or if you have any question about anything, not a problem. Here's where we promise you that we're going to give you some answers. We're going to answer to the best of our ability. And I haven't had a question in 20 years that stumped me. So I'm interested to know what you guys want to know more about. And if you can't right now, if you can't think about anything right now, that's fine. Okay. People, I'm looking at the private chat as well. Okay. I didn't even know we had a private chat. Daren discovered the private chat. He's my first guest to discover the private chat route. That's great. Does anybody have any other thoughts, any questions that you want to share? If not, I'm going to close the show down in a few seconds. I realize there's a delay, so I'm going to give it about 10 seconds. And if not, I'm going to throw it out to Daren. Is there any last things you want to share with our studio audience?
Well, thanks, Marvin. This has been quite fun. I enjoy our Thursday morning chats, and I enjoy what we're doing on the Small Business Commission. I joined that in December of 2019, and then we were soon into quarantine, and it really last year just kind of languished. And that's why I was encouraged to run for vice chair and did, and I'm looking forward to doing some good things with you on that. So this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. And for last but not least, I want to make sure I thank our guests. Thank you so very much for coming. Thank you very much for spreading the good news. I hope you will feel you got something out of this that you could use and help grow your business or help grow your presence in the business community. John, Suresh, Craig, Stephen, Ben, Mark, Russ. Let me see who else is out there. And that's it. Looks like everybody we got.
Kevin McCarthy.
And Kevin. Yes. Thank you, Kevin. It's been great. I really appreciate you all. Thank you very much for coming on board. Like I said, we do this every Friday at 3 o'clock. Next week, we're going to take a deeper dive into the next part of the 9-step process. If any of you, by the way, you want the True Voice questionnaire, just let me know. Just put True Voice in the chat. And True Voice is TROU. No, it's not TRUE voice, VOICE, right? So put True Voice in the chat and I'll send it to you. And I'll send it to you via Facebook Messenger, or yeah, that'll be the way I'll do it. Or I'll find out through YouTube or something. I'll figure out a way to get it to you. Anyhow, other than that, we had a great conversation. You guys are amazing. I'm going to sign off now and end the broadcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, and we are out.